Left for dead, wind screamed against the Guatemalan cliffs. Rain slashed sideways like whips, tearing into stone. And in that storm, 6 Navy SEALs were trapped, knee-deep in mud, low on ammunition, and surrounded by darkness that felt alive. One of them, Specialist Kevin Ross, just 21 years old, clutched his mother's silver necklace. His fingers trembled. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Sir, we're not getting out." Their commander, Nathan Cole, scanned the ravine. No exit, no reinforcements, no miracles left. With a heavy breath, he said what every man already knew. "We've been left for dead." Flashlights cut through the storm. Enemy boots scraped closer. The cartel hunters were coming. And just when the SEALs thought the night would be their grave, a spark ripped through the storm. From the western ridge, suddenly muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. A wall of bullets tore through the rain. The impossible had happened. A bloody path opened through the night. But before this miracle, before this ghostly fire appeared, there was only hopelessness. Let's rewind 6 days earlier. SEAL Team Delta had been sent on what was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission along the Guatemalan border. But bad intelligence, and worse luck, turned it into a living nightmare. Now the men crouched in a ravine that felt more like a grave. Command had gone silent. Rescue wasn't coming. Kevin Ross, still half a boy, half a soldier, checked his rifle for the 100th time. The mud had jammed it again. High-tech gear meant nothing against nature's fury. That silver cross from his mother pressed heavy against his chest. It reminded him of Iowa summers, of cornfields stretching endlessly under blue skies. But here, in this jungle, that world felt impossibly far away. Petty Officer Marcus Hill sat slumped, clutching his bleeding shoulder. He had been their best sniper, always calm, always precise. Now his rifle shook in his hands. His perfect aim stolen by pain and blood loss. The irony cut deep. A sniper who could no longer shoot straight. Nearby, Staff Sergeant Tommy Chen counted their ammunition. 3 magazines left, for 6 men. Enough for one last fight. Or enough for each man to choose his own ending. Because capture meant torture. And worse. Commander Cole stared at their map. The red ink bled uselessly across the page. The objectives meant nothing now, because officially, Team Delta no longer existed. Ghosts. Forgotten before they were even dead. Their meals were cold cardboard. Their photographs of wives and children, soaked with rain. Letters from home, falling apart like their hopes of survival. Kevin Ross touched his mother's words, the edges dissolving in the storm. Cole finally spoke. "Command wrote us off. We're ghosts already." The words sliced deeper than any bullet, because in that moment, they weren't just missing in action. They were erased. Deniable casualties in a war that didn't exist. Ross closed his eyes. He could almost hear his mother's bedtime stories. And that silver cross dug deeper into his palm. It was the only anchor left between life and giving up. Suddenly, Hill spotted something. Through the rain on the opposite ridge, a faint flash. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't enemy gear. It was something else. "Did you see that?" Hill whispered. Chen squinted. "See what?" But Hill just shook his head, because deep down through the blur of pain and blood, he felt it. They weren't alone, and maybe, just maybe, death wasn't the only thing waiting in those mountains. Sometimes, even in the darkest storms, a spark is waiting on the ridge, a spark that changes everything. Dawn didn't bring hope. It brought clarity. And clarity for the 6 SEALs was even worse than the night. The storm eased just enough for them to see. Mortar crews setting up on the ridges. Enemy patrols tightening the noose. Escape routes that had felt possible in the dark now revealed themselves as kill zones. Prepared, deliberate, designed to trap them. The men pressed their backs against the muddy ravine walls as explosions began to creep closer. Each shell shook the ground like an earthquake. Each blast stole more of their courage. Kevin Ross clung to the mud, his heart racing faster than the rain could fall. Fragments sliced across his face. His rifle, already unreliable, clicked empty. Hopelessness pressed down harder than the storm. Contact left. Chen shouted. Muzzle flashes ripped through the morning fog. Enemy positions sprang to life in places their intel had promised would be empty. They weren't facing ragged guerrillas. They were up against trained killers, professional soldiers, with the patience of hunters. Hill tried to raise his rifle, but his wounded shoulder betrayed him. His shots went wide, precious rounds wasted. The sniper who once split hairs at 800 yards now couldn't hit a target 20 feet away. The enemy laughed through battery-powered speakers, their voices warped and cruel. "Americans, your flag won't save you here. You'll die like dogs in our mountains." Cole pressed the radio to his ear. Static, only static. Their link to the outside world was gone. That was when Ross's voice cracked with raw fear. "Sir, we can't hold this. We don't have enough ammo." Chen's weapon jammed. Mud caked the magazine. Panic set in. 3 of their last magazines were ruined. Useless, the math was brutal. 6 men, a handful of working rounds. And enemies outnumbering them 10 to 1. Cole's jaw tightened. This wasn't strategy anymore. This was choosing how to die. "Make every round count," he ordered. But the truth pressed down on all of them. They weren't going to win. Ross squeezed the cross in his fist until the edges cut his palm. He whispered childhood prayers, half-forgotten words his mother had taught him, each syllable drowned out by the thunder of approaching fire. Hill's vision blurred from blood loss. The world tilted. The sniper's scope, a tool he once trusted with his life, was useless. Chen stared at their dwindling rounds, his hands shaking not from fear, but from despair. It was the cruelest kind of math. They couldn't even buy enough time to hope. The ravine was no battlefield. It was a tomb. Cole looked at his men. He had led them through hell before, but never like this, and never with such certainty that his orders would be their last. "Hold the line," he said, his voice steady. But in his eyes they saw it, acceptance, and then Hill froze. Even through his fading sight he felt it again. Eyes, watching from the ridge above, not enemy eyes. Not hunters waiting to strike, something else. A presence. The storm cracked open with lightning, and for just an instant he saw it. Movement on the western slope, not cartel, not military. Something different, and then a single shot split the air. The impossible happened. An enemy gunner collapsed, dead. And none of the SEALs had fired. Ross blinked. His mouth hung open. What was that? Another shot rang out. Another enemy dropped. Perfect precision. Through rain, through wind, through chaos, someone was executing shots that shouldn't even be possible. Panic broke among the enemy ranks. Spanish voices shouted over radios, "El Fantasma! El Fantasma!" The ghost. From nowhere, death was striking them down. Chen's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. The mysterious shooter wasn't wasting a single bullet. Radio operators down. Mortar crews gone. Squad leaders erased in seconds. It wasn't random. It was surgical. Whoever was out there knew the enemy better than they knew themselves. Every bullet bought the SEALs another breath. Every kill tilted the scale. Cole stared at the ridge. His mind screamed with questions, but his heart whispered something else. Hope for the first time in days. Hope and then silence. The gunfire stopped. Rain fell again like the world was holding its breath. The ravine was no longer a tomb. It was a place of miracles. But the question burned hotter than the storm. Who was saving them? Sometimes survival isn't about your own strength. The battlefield fell silent. It's about the ghost who chooses to fight for you. Only rain tapping against stone. Only the labored breaths of 6 men who should already have been dead. Kevin Ross held his useless rifle close, staring at the ridge as if staring at heaven itself. His lips trembled. "Sir." None of us fired. Cole didn't answer. He couldn't, because the truth was as clear as the storm. Someone else was out there, and whoever they were, they had just saved the lives of Ghost Team Delta. Enemy voices, once confident, now dripped with fear. "Fantasma! Fantasma!" they cried. The ghost. Ross felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't just the rain anymore. It was the sound of killers afraid of something they couldn't even see. One by one, enemy soldiers dropped. Each shot perfect. Each kill cleaned the mortar team that had cornered the SEALs. Wiped out. Radio operators trying to call reinforcements. Gone. Squad leaders shouting orders. Silenced mid-word. This wasn't random luck. It was precision. Cold, terrifying precision. Marcus Hill squinted through blurred eyes, desperate to catch a glimpse of their mysterious savior. Through the lightning flashes he saw it. A figure, low, disciplined, repositioning with the kind of awareness only a professional could possess. Not panicked, not hurried. Every move was calculated. Ross counted the rhythm of the shots. 1 every 8 seconds, like clockwork. Enough time to find the target, control breathing, and squeeze the trigger with deadly calm. No wasted ammo. No second shots needed, just perfection. Chen's jaw dropped. Sir, this is surgical. Whoever it is, they're dismantling the cartel like it's a training exercise. Cole's chest tightened, because deep inside he recognized the pattern. These weren't just the hands of a sniper. This was the work of a legend. Within minutes, the battle flipped upside down. The hunters became the hunted. Cartel fighters, who had been moments away from finishing the SEALs, were now scattering, panicked, screaming at ghosts in the storm. Their execution plan destroyed. Their confidence shattered. 6 dying Americans had just been handed back their lives, and all it took was one unseen shooter. Rain poured heavier, washing blood into the mud. The last enemy soldiers broke and ran. Their boots slipped on wet stone as they fled into the jungle. Silence, for the first time in days. Silence that wasn't filled with death. The SEALs just stared, too stunned to speak. Kevin Ross whispered the only words his dry throat could find. Who the hell was that? Cole forced himself to stand, his knees weak, his body broken from exhaustion. He scanned the ridge, searching for answers, and then he saw her. Through the mist, a figure emerged, moving like smoke, like a shadow turned human, civilian clothes. A weathered jacket, a faded baseball cap pulled low. But the way she moved, disciplined, sharp, precise, and then he noticed the weapon, an M4A5 sniper rifle, custom, modified, loved. The kind of weapon soldiers carried not just as a tool but as part of their soul. Cole's eyes fell to her arm. A tattoo nearly hidden, but unmistakable to a man who had served 20 years. The eagle, globe, and anchor. United States Marine Corps. Cole's voice was low, almost reverent. Marine. The woman didn't deny it. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than words. She scanned the SEALs like a commander would, checking wounds, counting ammo, calculating survival odds. Then finally she spoke. One word, sharp, commanding. Move. The SEALs blinked. Ross's mouth opened to ask 1,000 questions, but Cole raised a hand. When someone saves your life like that, you don't question. You follow. The mysterious woman led them up paths that weren't on any maps. She moved with confidence, as if the mountains were her home. Every rock, every ridge, every hiding place, she knew them all. She didn't carry extra gear. No comforts. Only the essentials. A rifle, ammo, and instincts honed sharper than a blade. Even Wounded Hill noticed it. The way she always checked their back trail. The way her eyes scanned the skyline. The way she slowed her pace for him without a word, adjusting so he wouldn't fall behind. This wasn't just a shooter. This was a soldier who had lived through abandonment. During a short halt, Chen couldn't resist. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman raised her binoculars, eyes never leaving the horizon. Her voice was steady. "Someone who was in your position once. Someone who didn't get help when it mattered." The words hit like bullets, because now it made sense. She knew what it felt like to be left for dead, to be erased, to survive anyway. The SEALs followed in silence, each man's thoughts spinning. Who was she? Why was she here? And how could someone outside of official command carry skills that surpassed even the best of them? Kevin Ross clutched his cross tighter. For the first time, he didn't just pray for survival. He prayed for answers. Because sometimes salvation wears a uniform. Sometimes it comes with flags and medals, but sometimes it comes from the ghost on the ridge. The jungle didn't let them go easily. Even with the mysterious woman leading, danger lingered in every shadow. The storm had slowed, but the mud pulled at their boots like chains. Every step reminded them, one wrong move, and this miracle would end. The woman never spoke more than a single word at a time. "Down, wait, move," and they obeyed. Not because she demanded it, but because she had already proved she was the only reason they were alive. Kevin Ross stumbled again. His body screamed for rest, his young legs heavy as stone. But before he could collapse, she guided him off the trail, pointing to a safer step. Not a gesture of comfort, but of precision. Marcus Hill winced with every movement of his wounded shoulder. Yet she slowed her pace without drawing attention to him. Every few minutes her eyes cut back, calculating his stamina, adjusting the route so he could keep going. She treated them not as strangers, but as soldiers under her charge. Cole studied her with the eyes of a commander. The way she scanned ridgelines before they even reached them, the way she shifted formation, placing the strongest men on the flanks, the weakest in the center. It was instinct, the kind born not from theory but from scars. This wasn't just a sharpshooter. This was a leader. And Cole's chest tightened with a thought that refused to leave. She's been here before. She's walked this same hell alone. Hours crawled by. The rain turned to mist, and finally the jungle opened up, a clearing. Flat ground. Enough space for a helicopter to land. The extraction zone. For the first time in 6 days, the seals felt air flood their lungs like oxygen instead of smoke. The sound of rotor blades grew louder, thumping across the mountains. Rescue was real. They had made it. Ross felt tears sting his eyes. He thought of his mother's cross, still pressed against his chest. He thought of Iowa summers, of cornfields and blue skies he thought he'd never see again. Hill gripped his rifle, bloodied but alive. He thought of the shots he had witnessed, impossible shots that had carved them a way out. He knew he'd never see marksmanship like that again. Chen whispered under his breath, counting the men, counting the miracle. All 6 still breathing. And all because of one woman. The helicopter descended, wind whipping through the clearing. The SEALs instinctively prepared for boarding, but when they turned, she was already walking away, her back to them. Her figure fading into the fog. Ross shouted, his voice breaking. "Wait, who are you?" No answer, only the sound of blades pounding the air. Cole stepped forward, watching her silhouette grow smaller with every second. He wanted to stop her, to thank her, to demand answers, but something inside told him the truth. She wasn't meant to stay, she belonged to the shadows. Not to medals, not to ceremonies, not even to gratitude. And with that she disappeared into the mist. The flight home was silent. No cheers, no laughter, just 6 men staring into the void, trying to understand what had happened. Ross held his mother's cross, whispering a prayer of thanks not to God alone, but to the ghost on the ridge. Hill replayed the shots in his mind, his hand sketching invisible firing lines in the air. Shots no sniper in the world should have been able to make. Chen sat rigid, his mind racing through military records. Who was she? Where had she trained? And why was she here alone? Cole, the commander, leaned back against the helicopter wall, eyes closed. And he knew. Some questions would never have answers. Some legends weren't meant to be explained. Weeks later, whispers spread like wildfire, not in official reports, but in quiet conversations among soldiers. They spoke of a woman, a sniper, a Marine once, but now something more. Some called her Raven, others Angel, most the Phantom. But to the 6 men who lived to tell the tale, she would always be the fire from the ridge. Far away in a forgotten border town cafe, she sat alone. Her jacket worn, her baseball cap pulled low. Her rifle case leaned against her chair. She cleaned her weapons slowly, like a ritual. The same hands that had written death across a battlefield now moved with calm precision. Around her, locals drank coffee and traded gossip. No one paid her any attention. And that was exactly how she wanted it, because she wasn't looking for fame, or gratitude, or even recognition. She was waiting, watching. For the next time soldiers were abandoned. For the next time hope was lost. For the next time a miracle was needed. The 6 SEALs would go on with their lives. They would train. They would fight. They would serve again. But deep down each man knew the truth: they were alive, because of her. And though the world would never know her name, her story would live on in whispers, in firelight tales, passed from soldier to soldier like sacred scripture. True heroes don't walk in daylight. They wait in the storm. They wait on the ridge. And when all hope is gone, they appear.